Hi everybody, welcome to a new and interesting kind of random video. I haven't posted any videos this week of gameplay, and the reason for that is because my birthday was on Wednesday the 19th, and so I kind of got caught up with doing stuff for that. And by that I mean working a lot and having a really busy week, and also having a lot of people contacting me and wanting to have calls and stuff when I was not at work. So I do apologize about not having anything up for Birth Me Code this week, but I will get back to it next week. No worries. We'll be right there. So today I wanted to talk about something that is a little bit different. There's something that I wanted to discuss today, and it kind of came out of the blue. Basically, as you may or may not know, fanfiction.net, which is I'm going to say infamous website, site of infamous repute, is basically kind of in its dying stages. And if you know anything about me, you know that I do enjoy writing a fanfic every once in a while, and I have some fanfiction on my account there that I wanted to kind of take a look at. And basically, the actual like stuff that's on there is not as exciting. We can go through that another time, but one of the things that I wanted to share were some of the comments that I left on other people's fics, which I think are kind of fun and interesting, and I kind of wanted to share with you guys. So bear with me on this. This might be something that nobody really cares about, excuse me, other than me. But I do want to I do want to cover it still a little bit because it's funny. Now, the last time I even looked at fanfiction.net was back in the early aughts, back when I was in like high school, early college, and so I haven't really touched it since then, except for like in very, very small amounts. And I have a lot of fun like fandom stories that I could tell you about my history. I'm hardly like a quote-unquote fandom scholar, so I can't really position myself as like, you know, an authority on fandom unless it's like about certain specific very small fandoms, in which case I can tell you a lot of stuff about. And I know I've been sitting on my Rule of Rose fandom thing forever, and you know, I want to talk about that and the hilarious schism that happened in the early fandom, and the way that fandom used to work in Web 1.0 versus how it works now, and like, it's so ridiculous, the whole saga. But like I said, I'm saving that for the actual like Rule of Rose playthrough, which I don't know if what we're doing about that. We were streaming it. We streamed like the first like couple of hours, and then that was it. Like, we didn't do the rest of it, so I don't know. We'll figure that out at some point. Anyway, what I wanted to talk about on here were some comments that I had left on other people's fics, basically, and I think it's kind of interesting how these play out, because they're the kinds of things that I think sort of reveal how much I've changed over the years. Because I mean, this is a long time ago, right? Like, these are things I was writing in like high school or like early college and things like that, and I'm like way past that point now. I just had my birthday this week, and yeah, I'm way past that stage. And like, I think it's just really interesting to see how these things kind of evolve. And it's also interesting too because I can very much tell, especially in high school, I remember I used to ape the conventions of the fandom scene, as it were, in order to I guess fit in more, because that's a thing that teens like to do, is fit in. When I was a kid, I didn't really care too much about fitting in, as long as there were some people around who liked the stuff that I like, and that's kind of how I am as an adult as well. As an adult, I'm a lot more open to like new experiences, so when people are like, hey, do you know about this thing? And I'm like, oh no, tell me about it. And sometimes I'll find new hobbies or new things that I think are cool to check out that I probably wouldn't otherwise if I hadn't been that open. But when I was in high school, I was very much like, oh, this is what's done, and so I'm going to follow it, which is really interesting because you'll notice that, like, my writing as a kid was pretty good. When I was just writing whatever, you know, I thought I wanted to write and stuff, and like, you look at it and it's very clear that like, yeah, I was reading a lot of books at the time. And then in high school I wasn't reading quite as many. I mean, I was reading a bunch of books, don't get me wrong, but I was reading a bunch of books, but I was also reading like very self-indulgent fanfiction and trying to become part of that like scene. And I think because of that, like, my actual writing suffered. And then my writing recovered as I went through college because I started writing for myself again, as opposed to fitting diving into particular genre tropes, or fic tropes that were popular. And so, you know, some of it also was just like, you know, I just got better. Learned more about writing, and I read a wider variety of stuff, and I got a better idea of like my own voice and style. So I think that the things I write now are pretty good. I will say that myself, even now, it's very difficult for me to sort of like uncompartmentalize things I'm writing as fic and things that I'm writing as original writing, because things I'm writing as original writing, I don't know, I'm in a completely different zone for that, and they're both fun, and I do enjoy doing both, and I get a lot out of doing both. However, I will say that I don't know, I'm have a much easier time in fanfic just finishing it and being like throwing it out to the world and be like, here you go, it's yours, go nuts. Whereas with my original writing, I tend to do a lot more pre-writing, and I tend to do a lot more sort of setup and research, and deciding kind of things that I want to do ahead of time, and then reworking that as I move through, and I discover things inevitably in the course of my research or the writing itself that I think work better. And I can usually tell that when I'm writing in terms of like original work, I'm usually going for a particular mood or a particular theme, whereas when I'm writing fanfic, it's usually just like, here's a bunch of moods and themes that I enjoy, and I'm just gonna recycle them over and over. So it'll be something along the lines of like, I want something dramatic where person A is dying in person B's arms, and person C, who's also in love with person A and a little bit in love with person B, is angsting about it. Whereas, you know, when I'm writing original fiction, I'm doing things and I'm like, hey, I think it would be cool to explore the relationship between personal identity and what we present on the internet. And like, then I write a story about that or whatever. And then other times I'm just like, you know, I went to go visit a friend of mine who lived in Kyushu, and we went to go see the castle in the town, because that was the big deal, and everyone in there like was telling us to go see the castle, and because everyone knew I was from out of town, right? So all like the people at like the konbini, the people at like the bank, the supermarket, the guy running like the Indian restaurant, they were like, oh, have you been to the castle yet? You gotta go to the castle. And I remember being at the castle and having this very like, you know, intense sort of feeling being there, which made me feel really sort of, I don't know what the word for it would be necessarily off the top of my head, because I'm tired and I've been working all day, but it's this very kind of like melancholy, like not quite mononoware, but almost like, you know, it's on the edge between like nostalgia and like, you know, like, everything, this too shall pass kind of thing. And I wanted to kind of capture that, so I wrote a short story basically chasing that once, which turned into a whole thing about losing people to cancer. But anyway, so even now, I would say that the quality of my fanfic has increased over the years, like, considerably, because, you know, these days when I write a fanfic, I'm like, look, I don't have a lot of time to write anything, so if I'm gonna write something, I might as well put some effort into it, but I will say that it's I still have kind of like that mental separation when I'm writing it, but anyway, so this is interesting because I'm commenting on things that people read, and these days, and I feel kind of bad about this, but I don't really comment that much on AO3. I should, but I don't, and to be quite honest, the reason I don't is because I don't really read a whole lot on AO3. There used to be a time when I was like in college or in high school where I'd get into something new and I'm like, ooh, I'm excited to see what people's takes are on these characters. Let me go see like what fic I can find. And these days I'm like, ooh, look at this like dynamic between characters. And then I just like make it up myself and talk about it with my best friend. You know, I don't really have the urge anymore to go see what other people in the fandom think about it. I'm just more like, you know, here's what I want out of it, problem solved. And I will say that, yeah, sometimes I do want to go out to eat, instead of cooking at home, but for the most part, I find that I've become accustomed to my own cooking, let's say it that way. So this is really interesting because these are a bunch of things that not only reveal what I was writing at the time, but the kinds of things I was reading, and I think that's really interesting. And we're not going to go through all of these because not every single one of these is particularly interesting, but I do want to go through these particular parts because I think they're cool and I think they're interesting. So thanks for joining in advance. If this is not a video that like interests you, that's totally understandable. And I'll be back to gameplay stuff next week or maybe over the weekend. I don't know. I really wanted for my birthday, on Wednesday I wanted to post myself either playing like the new Hive Swap, new-ish I guess now, Hive Swap thing, or the DLC for Helltaker, because I haven't played that yet, and I was so excited when I saw it was coming out because I wasn't expecting it. But I don't know, I just didn't have the drive for it, and I gotta strike while the iron's hot. So I'm recording this after work. It's pretty late, so yeah. This intro is really long. I should just cut it here. Alright guys, let's get into the actual reviews, okay? So for convenience's sake, I've decided that I'm going to take a look at 5 of these reviews. I'm gonna start with one, and I'll show them up on the screen for you when they come up as well, but yeah, we're gonna go through 5 of these, because I don't want this to be a forever long video. I don't think it's gonna sustain itself for quite that long, but we can have more volumes of this if people like it. We'll just kind of see how everyone feels. So this first one is from a fic in the Pokemon fandom. The title of the fic is called Death, Doom, Despair, etc., which is extremely relevant to my interests. This is a Pokemon fic. It's tagged K up. Now, back when I actually was reading fics on fanfiction.net, there were still... Okay, so you want to know how old I am? I was reading fics on fanfiction.net before they got rid of the adult content. Yeah, you didn't know they ever had adult content on fanfiction.net, did you? Did you, child? Well, they did, and I remember when they got rid of it, and then I remember realizing that it was all still there. It was all just marked as M now instead of NC-17. But anyway, I wasn't really reading fanfiction.net for porn for the most part. I mostly was reading it for angst, because that's really where my sweet spot is when it comes to enjoying fictional content. I could take or leave the sex, I'm here for pathos. So anyway, this is a fic called Death, Doom, Despair, etc. By Bouncy Blue Penguin version 2. The summary is: Misty is terribly ill and Ash thinks about what would happen if she died. Warning, this story is dark and full of capital A angst. Wow, I never would have guessed from the title. It's a pretty short fic. It's only about 1,100 words. It has 9 reviews. Imagine writing 1,100 words and getting 9 comments on that fic. It has 1 favorite. It was published in 2004 in July. And the tags here are parody and angst. I don't remember anything about this fic. I'm not rereading them, just so you know. I don't have that kind of time. However, and I say immediately after being like, wow, 1,100 words is nothing. I write emails for work longer than that. But yeah, just so you guys know, I'm not reading all of these fics again. I don't know if I can bring myself to do that. But anyway, this is the fic. I read it, and apparently I cared enough to write a comment. So here's my comment. It's on chapter 1, and it starts off with, Huzzah! A refreshing look at Ash and Misty love as if it were in character. I usually don't even like Ash and Misty love or rocket shipping because I find it hackneyed and boring. But with a dash of humor added, I must admit that it becomes kind of fun. Great work! Let's unpack this. So, first of all, I guess, alright, I seem to remember back when I was in, like, high school, and I would have, a lot of... I say high school because I'm being generous to myself. I would have just graduated high school about, like, a month before this, if I'm being honest. But, looking at this, it's kind of interesting because I wanted the pathos so bad that I read a fic with a ship I don't even particularly like. which is a thing I cannot even fathom doing now. Like, now I'll read stories about ships that I don't particularly like, you know, if somebody has written it and they want some feedback, or if someone's, like, highly recommending it or whatever, but, like, goddamn, these days I don't even read fics about ships I actually do like. Like, Jesus, what a different time in my life. So, I also want to pat myself on the back for remembering that AAML stands for Ash and Misty Love, because let me tell you something. If you think you hate ship names, you don't know how much you hate ship names until you have tried to navigate ships in the Pokemon fandom. I don't know if this is like this now in the Pokemon fandom, because I haven't actually genuinely shipped anything in Pokemon, or been interested in, like, the overarching characters all that much in a really long time, but, so I don't know if this is the case. I don't know if, like, you could go look up, I don't know, what's a popular ship? Leon and, Raihan? I don't know if you could look up Leon, Raihan, and it's called something like, I don't know, so, like, now you'd look it up and it would just be, like, Leon, Champion Leon / Raihan Gym Leader on AO3. But back in the day, before even fanfiction.net, when you were just navigating people's random, like, web pages that they had that just had fanfiction listed everywhere, which I was talking about this to my my dear friend and adopted sister Andy the other day, and I was telling her, I was like, Andy, I remember there being this one fanfiction archive and everything was organized alphabetically by the writer's name, and I was like, what? Who does that? It was insane, the things we had to do back then. But anyway, yeah, I remember Ash and Misty Love AAML was actually a pretty straightforward thing. Rocket shipping similarly. However, like, the other ship names were so ridiculous. And I remember Ash and Misty Love was also known as Poke shipping. Because. And there were a bunch of other things and they were like that. And they were just like, insert, like, term shipping. And who the fuck knew what the hell that was even about? Like, and I don't know where it came from. I don't know if it originated in the Japanese fandom and then got ported over or what, but, like, god damn. It would be like, to use my earlier example, like Leon Raihan, it wouldn't be called Leon Raihan. It wouldn't be called Lehan. It wouldn't be called Ryan. It would be called fucking, like, you know, the dragon climbs to the top of the tower shipping. And like, I don't know what the fuck that means. The Pokemon fandom is kind of insane. I would like to also just kind of poke a little bit of fun at myself here, and I'm not going to be too harsh on myself about this because A, it was like a million years ago, and B, because this was kind of the climate at the time. There's been a lot of, shall I say, discourse around the idea of giving unsolicited feedback to fanfiction writers. And I don't know, unsolicited feedback has never really, like, bothered me that much, and you'll be able to tell this because when I look at my actual fics on fanfiction.net in a later video that inevitably I'm gonna end up making, you will see that some of the comments I got were, like, straight up rude. Like, one of the very first comments I ever received on my writing was, like, legit a troll. And so, I gotta say, like, it's very interesting to me that I was this critical, and I guess I was because I had been in writing workshops, you know, not for school necessarily, although occasionally we would do a creative writing workshop. I was doing, like, ancillary outside of school, like, extracurricular stuff, where I would sign up for a writing workshop, and we'd all write something, and bring it in, and then we'd all give each other comments. And in that kind of scenario, it's expected that you're going to be getting constructive criticism back on your writing, so it's a different vibe, you know what I mean? And some people still get overly vicious on it. There are still, like, you know, social rules that need to be upheld, although I will say a lot of the best, like, feedback I've ever gotten has been extremely harsh, so I don't know, your mileage may vary. But it's just kind of funny that I took the time to read a fic with a ship I didn't particularly like all that much, and a ship that I know I kind of disliked. Like, I don't know, I was never really into rocket shipping, and I think it's just because, like, I just don't like them as a romantic couple. I just really like them as just being like best bros. It's kind of how I feel about a lot of like similar sort of like girl boss, male wife kind of relationships. But anyway, it's just interesting to me that I came in here, felt the need to tell the person I didn't like the ship they were writing about because I think it's hackneyed and boring. Who the fuck uses hackneyed in a fanfiction comment? Like, I really have to, I cannot emphasize enough to you how at any particular stage in my fucking life, I have been one of the fucking Durst kids from Homestuck. And I don't just mean Rose and Dave, I mean it includes, Dirk and Roxy too. So, clearly I was in a Rose phase here. But because I thought for whatever reason I was just like, usually I think this thing in general that you cared enough to write about sucks, but you did an okay job, and with a little humor I found it palatable. Good work. What a little shit. What a little shit, baby Jess. I can't even say baby Jess because I was like a full-on teenager at this point. Like, at this stage in I think I could vote at this point in my life. Jesus Christ. Anyway, so that's the first one there. Hopefully this gives you kind of an idea. I don't know that I'm going to have this much to say about every single one of these, because I'm going to be honest, I don't really plan out my videos all that well. Okay, let me retract that. Some of my videos I plan out really well, and those videos are not made yet because they're still in planning stages. If I want to actually make something, I kind of just have to do it, and so here we are. So I haven't actually read any of these, like fully digested them. I'm kind of re-experiencing them with you. I'm just having vague memories come back to me about this stuff. God, wow. Anyway, I hope you guys are enjoying this as much as I am, and let's move on to the next one. God, I gotta stop pretending like I don't need a script. Because Jesus Christ, if every one of these is going to end up being 10 minutes long, we're going to have a problem. I'm sorry, everyone. I can only be me. Alright, so we've had a Pokemon fic so far. We have another fic here, which is called Beyond the Future. And it's a sequel to a fic called Memories of the Future. Now, I have to talk about Memories of the Future a little bit because it was kind of like a seminal thing for me, and not in that like the fic itself was that great. It's just it represented to me personally a lot. My best friend likes to call my particular taste in fiction and my aggressive love of pathos, which is the reason why I feel so bonded emotionally to Enoshima Junko, is because I'm here for the despair. Make me hurt with your fiction. And she likes to call it Jess Place. And so we've kind of adopted the term. It's also the name of my Animal Crossing island, is Jess Place. But Jess Place basically represents a tragic story. It's got a lot of hallmarks of very, like, heavy emotional beats. It's a lot of lovers dying in each other's arms. It's a lot of, like, people killing themselves with things left unsaid. It's a lot of, very, like, large, overarching sort of themes of... it tends to come with like a post-apocalyptic vibe, or we're living under a totalitarian regime vibe or something like that. And not in every instance, but it certainly encompasses that. And the reason I bring this up now is because in the last couple of years, I lost that bet. It wasn't really a bet. It was just that thing that the Nates and I do where we play Monster Hunter. And if you cart 3 times in a row, especially if you cart 3 times in a row on one hunt and cost everyone that hunt, you have some sort of like Batsu game, right? You get some sort of punishment that you gotta do. And mine, because we were at a particular point where I had not actually kept up and been doing my armor and everything, I was carting left and right. And so that was where the whole Jess suffers through love life thing originated. So I had to watch the whole first season and the first episode of the second season. And I made videos for every single one of them that can't go on YouTube because Bondi is, you know, relentless in their content claiming and such. So if you want to see them, they are on Daily Motion. You can find them on my Tumblr. But that culminated in the fact that I had to pick a ship for every character, and it had to have some sort of like reasonable thing to go along with it. And I had to write a fic about my ships. Now, that was the only thing, and Nate said it had to be, I forget how many words, but it came out to about, like, I don't know, 2,000 words or something like that. He said, like, two pages in whatever size font. Like, it was a fucking English paper. And, I remember I was like, fuck it. And I came up with this whole outline for what I wanted to do. And I sat down, and I banged it out in a day. Like, all of it. And it's a long fic. It's well over 10k words, and it's it's a fic that honestly is pretty decent. And I worked in some literary allusions to other things that I respect the hustle, but I don't like. So there are references to things like what's it called? Great Gatsby in there, if you know to look for it. Things like that. And basically the premise of it is that all of the Love Live girls are living in this totalitarian situation where they're all suffering in different ways and trying to live their lives, and bad things happen because people make decisions to do stuff. The reason I'm bringing this up now is because the whole template for that more or less came from, and is ever so slightly inspired by, I mean, it's inspired by a lot of other, like, similar sort of things, and because I was trying to make it as edgy and Jess Place as possible, but I have to admit, somewhere in the back of my mind when I came up with that whole thing was Memories of the Future, a Totally Spies fanfic by a writer called Psychedelic Leviathan. And guys, this fic, I loved it in high school. I loved this fic in high school so much. I really cannot even emphasize to you how much I loved this when I was in high school. And it was like I mentioned, Totally Spies fic, which is a fandom that I was in basically by myself. Not because there weren't other people, but just because, like, I don't know, there was just nobody really for me to talk about it. But I used to, like, watch Totally Spies on TV after school or whatever, and for whatever reason, I had fandom feelings about it, and I started to write down these, like, little fics in notebooks, which is a thing that I used to do when I was younger, and we didn't have, like, a computer that was so easy to access whenever I wanted, because I'm from the back in the day when the computer was a family computer, which is relevant to this story. Jesus Christ, we're not gonna get through all 5 of these. I'm gonna have to cut this down into 3, I think, just to make it a manageable video size. But anyway, the... oh, Lord. So, it was a family computer, and I had been writing these little Totally Spies, like, vignettes, I guess you could say, in my notebooks. And, it's tough because when you're in certain fandoms and you're not going after things that are, like, very heavily implied to be canon, or easy. And I'm not saying this as a derogatory thing, I'm just saying a lot of fans tend to go for the low-hanging fruit. If there's, characters and they have a lot of back and forth and will they, won't they energy, then that's probably going to be the most popular ship. If it's a character, if it's a canon ship, it's probably going to be a really popular ship. Like, it's easy to find stuff for that. And the thing about Totally Spies was, a lot of it was just, like, people inventing boyfriends for the spies, and I'm like, no, I don't want that. I want the spies dating each other. And being, like, angsty. And whatever. So I was so unfulfilled. And then Psychic Leviathan, or I'm sorry, their full title was A Psychic Leviathan. A Psychic Leviathan enters the chat and drops this huge multi-chaptered story focused around Mandy, the like mean girl that the rest of the spies don't like, being in love with the main quote-unquote character Clover, and like dealing with her like repressed queerness in a not post-apocalyptic, but like in a society that's been taken over by this religious cult. And it's basically about her and her feelings for Clover and how her own repressed queerness is driving her to become revolutionary against, I think his name was like the preacher or the pastor, like whoever was puppeting this government. And she goes through the whole thing, and it's so long, and I remember like guys, I can't even explain to you. I was reading this fic on fanfiction.net using the AOL internet browser on dial-up internet. I want those words to sink in. Do you even know what those words mean? I don't even know if some of you know what they mean. I really cannot emphasize to you how old I am. So, I mean, there's a lot of people in fandom older than me. I'm not actually that old. It's just like, God, the world changes so quickly. So, so anyway, I remember there were my parents had these weird, like, parental controls installed, which is another story for another day, but they would take certain chapters of the fic and censor them, and I wasn't allowed to read them. And it wasn't because they had anything that was, like untoward or anything like that. It just blocked random chapters, and it was so infuriating to me because I was like trying to get into this story and then huge chunks of it were gone. And I remember being in school and asking my English teacher if I could borrow her computer during lunch one day to look some things up. And she's like, well, don't you have a computer at home? And I was like, yeah, but for some reason, like, parts of the site that I need get blocked, and it's really annoying. And she's like, this isn't something that's like, and what she meant was, this isn't going to be something that's going to look questionable in my browser history, will it? And the answer is, yeah, probably it would have if I hadn't been tech savvy enough to know how to delete, internet history. So, luckily for her, I did know that. And I remember I was spending, like, my lunch period at school reading the missing chapters of this fic so that when I went home I could read the rest of them. Now, the thing that I need to find out, and we gotta see whether or not this is the case, I am very anal about data transfer from previous, like, computers. I may actually have this fic saved somewhere, because there was a long period of time where we were on dial-up internet, and the dial-up internet, obviously, it tied up your phone line, and it was very expensive. And it's so funny to me, like, that you were paying so much money for, like, 265 kilobytes a second internet. But, so what I used to do, and obviously everyone was always clamoring to get online because they needed stuff. And so what I used to do is I would go and I'd find the fic, and I would copy the text, and I would save it into like a word processing file. And I say that instead of saying Microsoft Office Word because I started this on a very old Apple computer that didn't even have Office. It had a suite of programs called ClarisWorks. So I have a bunch of ClarisWorks writing documents that I then had to unearth from that computer using a combination of floppy disks and CD-RWs across 3 machines in order to get these fics onto my laptop that I had for college so that I could save them onto an external hard drive. So I still have quite a few fics from back in the day, just because I saved them. And yeah, I'm weirdly proud of that. I don't know what to tell you. So anyway, back to Memories of the Future. So Memories of the Future kind of went really off the rails as you continued. And I mean, I was eating it up at the time because I was like, I don't care. It's, you know, fem/angsty Totally Spies fic. This is exactly what I wanted. And so I was kind of okay with the fact that as things continued, we got up to a point where, like, it's revealed that the Reverend and all of the Reverend is an alien, and he's coming down to, like, mollify the masses so that for this inevitable alien invasion. And at the end, Mandy sacrifices herself in order to save everyone else. Or maybe it's like halfway through the story Mandy sacrifices herself. I don't remember. But she sacrifices herself at some point. And I think it's at the end of one arc, and then it switches to the Totally Spies, because I do remember that Sam also sacrifices herself as well. And I was just like, double sacrifice! Love it! So, yeah. But anyway, that worked up to that. I'm sure you totally saw that coming, that it was aliens the whole time. But so that was the original fic, right? And the original fic was great. I think there was like some offshoot kind of story that A Psychic Leviathan also posted. But I remember at some point they deleted all their fics. So unless I have Memories of the Future saved somewhere in a converted rich text file, I don't know if it still exists on the internet. So, sorry, everyone, if I've made it sound like you want to read this. But I will say that, I remember A Psychic Leviathan posting a thing and saying, I'm deleting all of my fic because I feel bad, and I would be upset if I were the original IP holder and someone took my creation to make something messed up like this. And I felt so betrayed, because I was like, man, this was so it for me. And like, maybe things would be different these days. Like, maybe people would think differently, since it seems like it's a little bit more mainstream, to have your own versions of things and pick and choose from canon, or use canon as a diving board into the deep end. And I don't know, for me personally, if any of my original stuff ever gets popular enough to like have people like making fandom stuff for it, yeah, I'll probably be annoyed by certain trends that I'm always annoyed with in fandoms. But to be honest, I'd be so flattered if somebody took my stuff and was like, I mean, although mine doesn't lend itself so much to, edgifying, it's probably more along the lines of people writing like Everyone Survives AUs, but I would be so jazzed about that. I'd be so happy. I probably wouldn't read everybody's fic, but because a lot of it wouldn't be to my taste, but I would be very like supportive and like, yeah, you do that, go for it, take the parts of this that you like and run with it. So that's my endorsement. If you ever want to write fic of my whatever I put out into the world, feel free. But I will say that, yeah, I was very, very, very betrayed by this. So anyway, later, there was a sequel that was released, and it was by a different writer altogether, somebody named Dragon Shadow, which is the most fanfiction.net name I think I've ever seen in my life. And basically, they had said it's a sequel to Memories of the Future by Psychedelic Leviathan. And in the author notes, they do say that they wrote it with permission from a psychic Leviathan. So it's very interesting that they wrote this sequel with permission from the original author. I think that's really cool, you know? Like, that's a neat thing. So anyway, this story is a little bit bigger than the one we just looked at. This one is 100,000 words, over 100,000 words, almost 101k. It has 28 comments, 13 favorites, 3 follows, and it's 31 chapters long, rated M. And the blurb here says that it is called "The War Against Religious Repression Has Finally Been Won." Sorry, the war against religious oppression has finally been won. ... Now the war against human extinction has begun. So it's really wonderful. I love this. I'm also going to read you the author's notes because I do have the fic pulled up here. And the author's notes: 1, this story is a sequel to Memories of the Future by a psychic Leviathan and is written with his permission. Oh, that's right. Yeah, psychic Leviathan actually did give us pronouns and said that he was he, him. So, yeah. Sorry, retroactively I was using they. I couldn't remember that we did have confirmed pronouns for this writer. 2, the fic is completed already, so there's no chance of lagging off in the middle. It'll be updated once every day with at least 1 chapter. Dragon Shadow, fucking kudos to you. Like, damn. Damn. Imagine. Number 3, this prologue, i.e. the first chapter, serves as a refresher for the events of Memories of the Future, so you do not have to go back and reread all 100,000 words in order to understand enough to enjoy this fic. If you haven't read Memories of the Future before, I highly recommend it, though it's probably not completely necessary to understand in a general way what is happening in this fic, which, again, you know, fair. So I also like this too because the prologue here just reminded me that this fic was the original fic, I should say, was projecting into the future in the distant the distant year of 2013. You remember that part of 2013 when aliens invaded and turned the US into a, you know, religious gosh, what's the word I'm looking for? Not oligarchy. Theocracy is what I meant to say. Oh, God, this feels good. I don't care if any of you are enjoying this. I'm enjoying this immensely. So anyway, this is Beyond the Future. Now, I left a rather lengthy comment on the end of this. I got all the way to chapter 31, and then I wrote this comment. Dragon Shadow, I want to personally thank you for writing this as a sequel to one of my favorite pieces of fanfiction ever, Memories of the Future. You did not disappoint. I am of the opinion that the world needs more totally spies fiction wrought with death, suffering, and homosexuality, so obviously I'm a big fan of yours as it is. But the story. First are things I liked. I really enjoyed the part about Starlight Spectres and the idea of 2 Mandys. It kept one guessing throughout the story. Thank you so much for giving Sam a major role in this story. Not that she was left out of the original, but her internal struggles seem to be addressed more here. She's my favorite character, so I appreciate being able to read about her. Not everything tidily wrapped itself up at the end. Just like its predecessor, this fic resolves the main issues dealt with the characters without adding a sugary happily ever after cap to it. Again, what I liked about this installment of the Future series, as in the first one, was the lines between good and bad blur. Zerdexians, I'm sorry, I tried to read it without laughing, but I couldn't. Zerdexians, though obviously the lead antagonists of the story, are more complex than simple killing machines. Zeninia, even before her transformation, was involved in a loving romantic relationship with Taryn, who also seems quite loyal and devoted. Meanwhile, the Argathans? my current thing where I'm writing a lot of fic for fucking Three Houses is making me want to read this as Agarthans, but it's not what it is. Argathans are reluctant ally. I think I should be saying reluctant, sorry. Are reluctant allies at best, and the cause of humanity's trouble in the first place. Just a couple of things I have questions about. Why doesn't Sam get a memorial on Argoth? I just kind of assumed Clover would mourn her a little bit more than she did, that's all. If Zaninia had been infused with Faustium from Mandy, and she drank those 2 vials of it before exploding the Zardexian fleet, why isn't she a Starlight Spectre too? Or is that just a human thing? Well, that's it for my obscenely long review. Thanks for listening and occupying my time when I should be studying for exams. I love that I remember just enough of the original fic and this fic to be able to parse more or less what it's talking about, but I hope that all of you are just... I should have just led with this. I should have led with this and given you the context after, is what I should have done, but I didn't, so here we are. Anyway, so this is going to be the longest of them because this is the one I really wanted to talk about when I was doing this. I think we're going to go through maybe one more today, and then we'll move on. And if you guys want to see more of this, we'll do more of it later. Or, I don't know, if the mood strikes me and I want to do more of this later, we'll do more of it later. But yeah, okay, so that's it for Beyond the Future and my long rambling explanation of Memories of the Future. Okay, and here we go on to the last review of today. This one is very interesting in the choice that I made of what to be reading. So... so because time is a circle and it's a much smaller circle than I had initially realized, webcomics are actually making a bit of a resurgence in recent years, known as webtoons. I don't know how much everybody knows about webcomics from back in the early aughts, up to about, like, I don't know, I want to say, like, 2010, 2012-ish, but they were a pretty big deal, and they were kind of nice because, like, anybody could do them. And there were a lot of, like, heavy hitter ones that were up there, one of which was known as Mega Tokyo. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about Mega Tokyo because A, I'm tired enough already of recording this, and B, there's just way too much to get into, and that's a rant for a completely different day. I have a lot of issues with Mega Tokyo, is what I'm saying. To the point where I kind of was pretty vocal about how much I disliked it, like, quite a lot. And then, so it's very interesting that this final one here, I was reading fic from Mega Tokyo. Why? Like, I don't understand what was wrong with me when I was, like, 18 or whatever I was when this was posted. But, like, I just had so much fucking free time. What the hell? How was I having time to read fanfic about properties I don't even like and I actively dislike? This would be like if I was like, hey, I want to go read fic about, I don't even know. I'm trying to think of, like, some sort of, like, franchise that I actively dislike. I don't know, like, I'm trying to think of something and I can't even come up with anything because, like, I don't have time to even know what exists. So, let's say, like, I watched, say, alright, so, like, I'm not a huge fan of Death Note, right? Like, there are parts of Death Note that I actively, like, really fucking hate. And so... that would be like if I was going and reading, like, Death Note fic. Even though I'm pretty sure I have read Death Note fic, I chose something that was too old. Fuck. I don't know. I don't even know what's on TV or popular now. I feel like everything these days is something that either, like, I'm into and I'm like, cool, I'm blah blah blah, or it's something that I, like, just don't care about enough to know anything about. It's really difficult for me, I guess, to relate to this. But anyway, I fucking hated Mega Tokyo. Why was I reading fic about it? I don't understand. It was me. It was still me, and I don't... Past me makes no fucking sense to me. So anyway, if you don't know anything about Mega Tokyo is a webcomic that might still be going, I don't actually know. And the guy who drew it, basically he made these self-insert characters of himself and his buddy, and the whole storyline was that they accidentally go to Japan and then have all of these wacky adventures. And the main character, based on the artist slash writer, is this shy, very, like, you know, he's like a Saihara type, you know, he's shy and sensitive, and all these girls want to fuck him, and he just doesn't know what to do with all these girls coming onto him all the time. And it's very, like, for me. And yeah, so anyway, one of the things, about this is he like built a robot, or there's like a robot at some point, and she has a soul and also is in love with the main character. And then there's like a couple of girls, like actual real life, like human girls that are in it, and it's like they all kind of have a crush on him too, although one of them gets paired off with the buddy later, and it's weird because the buddy was exclusively comic relief for a really long time, and then after that guy left, and there were no like funny things, like also random things to add in anymore, the artist guy was left doing all of the writing, and it just all became like this like heavy, like, it's, and I don't want to say shoujo as a pejorative, because I mean shoujo is really good in general. It's like anything else, it's just like a genre, but like, I don't know if you guys are familiar with like bad shoujo. So like there's like bad shoujo where it's just like annoying and cloying and stupid. That's kind of what it turned into, and like everybody was like, oh, it's, you know, blah blah blah, and it didn't even give any good pathos, because like all of the stuff that they would set up to be like emotionally rewarding in that way just wasn't cathartic at all, because it all came down to, I'm sad boy and girl hit on me, what do? So yeah, I don't know. But anyway, so this is a fic that I'm gonna tell you right now. I read it because it had a fem/slash pairing, and it was pairing the robot, I guess, and one of the human girls, I think. I don't remember very much. I'm pretty sure the one was a robot, and I'm pretty sure the other one is human. But in this one, it's the robot girl and the human girl, and they both, like the robot gets abducted by the developers of the MMO that's kind of happening in the background of the story for whatever reason. And yeah, I don't know, dude. So anyway, this is called Mega Tokyo: New Games, by His Holiness. And it's when Ping is abducted by vengeful Endgames developers, who will help Miho rescue her friend. So maybe it's not. Maybe it's not the robot and the human girl. Maybe it's the human girl and the other human girl. I don't remember the other human girl's name. I don't know. I really don't remember. I'm sorry. It's been a long time. So anyway, this is a 9-chapter story. It's about 40k. It's got 18 reviews, 19 favorites, and 8 follows. Yeah, I remember nothing about this. I'm sorry, I had so much to say about the fucking Totally Spies one, because like the original is so cemented in my memory, but this I have no recollection of. Like, I was shocked. I was like, I read a fucking Mega Tokyo fanfic? So anyway, here's my review. Wow, I'd almost given up hope on finding decent fics on this site, but you proved to be a pleasant surprise, I say, coming in here as a fucking asshole backhanded compliment. Well, I really, really hate Piro. I love the characters Ping and Miho and their strange relationship. I find it extremely intriguing, and I'm glad someone else thought so too. Kudos on your writing style, which carries voice and few grammatical errors. There actually could be none, but that's pretty unusual for any fic. All the non-canon material you added to the story fits with the continuity, and none of the actual MT casts are out of character, which is quite refreshing. Though there were some places where the syntax was a little awkward, I can excuse it since it rarely occurs. Basically, a great story, and keep working on it. And then in parentheses, don't be like me and leave readers with ridiculous amounts of time between chapters. Ha ha ha. This is pretty funny to me, to be quite honest, because, like, wow, there's a lot going on here. I did really hate the main character, that is true. Like, I did really fucking hate him. And of course, I had to clarify that in the comment, or else how would people know? I also really like this kind of assholey thing here where I'm like, there's not many grammatical errors, but I didn't actually check. It's not like I actually found any grammatical errors, I was just assuming that there were, because most fics have them. What an asshole thing to say! Jesus Christ. It's so funny too, because like, all of that stuff doesn't necessarily need to be in here. I mean, the syntax thing, okay, sure. But it also does sound pretty self-important that I'm like, I can excuse this, like, you know what I mean? It's just so funny because the environment on fanfiction.net is so different than on AO3. AO3 is very much about, like, writer first, like, you know, don't fucking comment if you don't have anything, like, nice to say, unless someone asks you specifically for feedback. Whereas fanfiction.net, it was just like, go nuts, bro. Oh, man. So this is really funny. I do have to say that I do want to kind of keep going with this, because the next couple fics that I wrote reviews for are for the same fandom, and it's also a pretty interesting fandom. And it's funny because, like, when I'm looking back on, like, fandoms I had when I was younger, I remember my Totally Spies phase, so that's one thing, and I remember that there were times when I would read Pokemon stuff, but, like, my big fandoms when I was younger were things like Digimon, and, like, I don't even hear, there's, like, not even, in the first, like, 5, there's no Digimon comments whatsoever. I'm just reading the fics, and consuming them, and not saying anything back. It's so funny to me that that's the case. But yeah, there's some other stuff in here that I would like to go over as well, I think, because I think it's kind of interesting, and it shows, like, a weird little window, not only into my personal past, but just into kind of, like, other places and maybe things that people didn't know about because they weren't around for it. But I guess this is the last one we'll do for today, you know, because, like I said, these are getting a little bit worrisome in how long they are. Okay, so that'll about do it for this video tonight. God, I have so much recording and not a lot that I feel like I can edit out of it. So, yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this impromptu podcast. Yeah, let me know if this is something kind of interesting and you'd like to kind of check it out at another time. It's the kind of thing that I think would be fun to do every so often. Yeah, basically this one, the reason this one's going on my YouTube and not the channel, the Legendary Zetspo channel, is because it's not really related very much to, like, the stuff that Nate and I do. It's just very related to me personally and, like, my personal past, so I feel a little bit more comfortable just having it on my own, you know, my own channel. But I hope you enjoyed. If this is the kind of thing you'd like to see, or if you'd like, you know, something along those lines in the future, a couple of ideas I have for these things that I would like to put on the Legendary Zetspo channel are, I did type up a review of Omori, the RPG Maker game that came out a while ago, and I wanted to give some thoughts on that. I have a, I wanted to talk about, I haven't done, like, the outline for this yet, and I want to go into these with an outline, because as we can see today, I cannot be trusted. But I wanted to make an outline and talk a little bit about Everhood and what makes Everhood really interesting. So I kind of want to talk about those two things. Maybe I can make those sometime soon and put them up, you know, on the Legendaries Expo channel. You know, make things kind of a little diversified again. We're pretty close, I guess, to the end of Birth Me Code, so maybe we'll wrap that up next week? I don't know. Not actually sure how close we are. Hopefully we're close to the end of it. There's a couple of other things. There's a little RPG Maker game I found that I'm gonna play for the channel. I think is kind of like a palate cleanser. I haven't decided yet. It does have English. I don't know if I'm gonna play it in English or if I'm just gonna play it in Japanese. We'll see. I do also want to play the next part of Hive Swap. I do want to play the DLC for gosh, Helltaker. Because I didn't play Helltaker for the channel, and I kind of am bummed that I didn't, because it was a fun little game. I played it in a couple of hours, if that, and yeah, I don't know, it was just a super charming experience. I really loved the designs of all the characters, and yeah, like I like to say, basically it represents my sexuality. A whole bunch of different sexy women and a beefy guy. So, I hope you enjoyed this video today, and I hope everyone takes care, has a good weekend. Yeah, I had a pretty good birthday this year. I might talk about it when I go back to do the recording for Birth Me Code and whatnot, but yeah, it was pretty low-key, but good. So alright everybody, take it easy, have a great weekend, and yeah, hang in there. Talk to you later. Bye!